Welcome back. Today is day 2 of how to make over $100,000 in the next 100 days. Remember, if you want to take your coaching and your training and your education, your real estate career to the next level, and you're really motivated by this concept, as I know literally thousands of you are, of making at least $100,000 in the next 100 days, the next natural step for all of you is to join Premier Coaching. This is our podcast. We're going to give you 20 to 30 minutes of coaching and training today. But remember, again, if you really are serious about your real estate business, like Julie and I were talking yesterday at the end of yesterday's show, you're definitely going to want to join Premier Coaching. We've made it easy for you. It takes 40 seconds. And guess what? The first 30 days is 100% for free. Here's what you do now. Go ahead and text the word Premier. Text the word Premier, P-R-E-M-I-E-R, to 47372, or you can simply go to premiercoaching.com, and there's links in today's show description too where you can just click Premier Coaching to join. So this is our podcast series on how to make over $100,000 in the next 100 days, and your homework from today's podcast, when you're excited, motivated, and you're ready to get into action and frankly take advantage of what this new market is going to become for you, you definitely want to join Premier Coaching. So text the word Premier to 47372, or simply go to premiercoaching.com, or scroll down below whether you're on YouTube or iTunes or Stitcher, Spotify, or all the other places our pod is downloaded, and just click the link in the show description.
All right, so on to part 2 of how to make over $100,000 in the next 100 days. We're talking about the first 5 proven lead generators for your $100,000 in a 100-day plan. Remember, you should be focused mainly on listings because the listings will automatically create buyers for you. Work with the buyers yourself or pre-qualify them and refer them to referral partner agents. All right, first lead generator.
You said something. You said a lot there.
Sure.
Now, I want you replay what Julie just said. I'm going to give you guys an example. We have coaching clients that have been with us for years. We have one that's been with us for 18 years. Now, what does that mean? It means that obviously we're delivering great long-term value and we become part of their families and they become part of ours. But that aside, all of them have migrated to being primarily listing agents. In other words, they realize that in real estate, the greatest gift from the real estate gods, as Julie's fond of saying, is being a listing agent. Because with listings, you have leverage. Now, would you have loved to have learned how to be a powerful listing agent last year in preparation for all the changes that are happening with regards to buyer agency? I'm guessing that you would. Well, guess what? It's not too late for you. Because if you have 5 listings, I'll give you an example of a coaching client. I'm thinking of Chuck Williamson. I'm thinking of a lot of the coaching clients that Julie has on her personal schedule. They focus almost exclusively on taking listings because they know, for example, like if they have 10 listings at all times, they know that every single month, more or less on autopilot, whether the interest rates are high or low, they're going to have 3 or 4 of those selling per month. Maybe in a slow month over the holidays, it's 2. That's just listings. That's not including buyers. But they also know that their average listing commission on each of those is, say, $15,000. So on average, if they have 10 listings at all times, in a slower month, they're going to make $30,000. On a normal month, they're going to make $60,000 per month. That's when you have got your mind wrapped around the fact that with listings, you have leverage. Think about that. You have 10 active listings right now. You're following our system that we teach you in our coaching program, how to lead generate, how to pre-qualify, how to present the whole thing. We're teaching you exactly how to be a powerful listing agent. It's now the holidays. If there's snow on the ground, if you're like where Julie and I are from in Ohio, right? You're sitting around by your fireplace. You've got these listings that are being shown by the buyer's agents as they're trudging up the driveways, as they're knocking the ice off the lock boxes, as they're wishing they were anywhere else other than basically having to show that house. You guys get it? The leverage you get as a listing agent or all the other buyer's agents out there that are going to try to sell your house for you. So you have to keep that in mind and be focused. Big picture, the real freedom that comes from being in the real estate industry comes primarily when you're a listing agent.
Very well said, and I couldn't agree more because the buyers will come when you're a listing agent. Okay, so first proven lead generator should be on the top of everyone's list because you all have them. And that is number 1, your past clients and your sphere of influence. Even if you're brand new and you don't have any past clients yet, you do have a database. You do have friends, family, you have people you know from your previous business or, life. Okay, so otherwise known as your database. Statistically, when you have regular and real conversations with your list, at least 10% of your list will either do business with you or refer business to you every year. So what would happen if you committed to speaking with 100% of the people in your database over the next 100 days? Now, Don't get mad if another agent lists, quote, your past client if you're not making the effort to talk to them.
Now, let me interject something in here. So, one of our friends and a member of our EXP family, Libertas, is a guy named Dwayne Richens. And Dwayne is a really great, very credible, smart guy who also has a business where he's teaching agents to do door knocking. And Dwayne thinks that the last thing you should be doing when you're trying to build your real estate business is working on your centers of influence and past clients. And I know why he's saying that. So I just want to be, I think he's right with what he's saying, but you have to take it in context. If you don't have any past clients, right, as is the case with newer agents, if you don't really have much of a sphere of influence, you've never been that social or what have you, you're going to have to do the real work of real estate like what Dwayne prescribes, which is going out and door knocking. And of course, we teach you how to do that in Premier Coaching as well. So don't think that just because you don't have a centers of influence and past client list, that basically means that you're doomed in real estate. Not true. You're going to have to do what Julie and I did. We had no, when we were selling real estate, a lot of our people our age, which would have been our centers of influence and past clients, they were barely out of college. Okay, we were barely out of college when we started selling real estate.
They were sub first time buyer.
Exactly. They were. Yeah. So we had to do. Guess what? We had to do expireds and for sale by owner and door knocking. We had to do the real work of real estate, and I'm glad we did because we learned it so well. We sold over 100 homes our first year, and now we developed a system around it. And you are obviously benefiting from all of that. So do accept the fact that this is in our statistic, that something like 60% of all your transactions, assuming you've made it into the business for 5 years and you've been somewhat successful for 5 years, something like 60% of all your transactions will come from centers of influence and past clients. Again, that's assuming you made it for 5 years. That's assuming you have some transactions. That's assuming you are proactively trying to expand your center of influence, and you're actually having meaningful conversations, ideally that are going to lead to a conversation with a decision-making adult about buying or selling real estate. So do understand that we are advocates of the first thing being the centers of influence and past clients because it's the easiest business to go after because they know, love, and trust you. And it requires the least amount of skill because they know, love, and trust you. But there are limits to it. And I'm going to give you the other limit. You will, if not having a very big center of influence and past client list, which you should always be building, and you can't build it forever because you live in a little 25-mile radius. You're not changing dry cleaners, and you're not going to playing pickleball with different people every single day. So you're going to max out on the number of people, especially your centers of influence, that are going to be in your list. And the same will go with your past client list. Some of them will move. Some of move out of town. They won't be your list anymore necessarily. Some of them will pass away. Some of them will buy homes from other agents. You guys get it? So the problem ultimately at the center of influence and past client only agent, which is a lot of you guys, and we call you one spoke wonders, is you will top out on your lead source, that being centers of influence and past clients, faster than you can possibly imagine. That is the reason why it's the first thing that we prescribe for most of you, but certainly not the only thing.
Exactly. So for the people who are in your database, whether it's small or large, there are 3 questions to ask. How many people in your database, ask of yourself so that you'll be inspired to call them. How many people in your database know what their home is worth in today's market? It's your job to let them know. If they knew that they could get X for their home, netting them Y, what would that do to their plans? Remember, we've just achieved an all-time high of the national average of $426,500 as of last week. How many people are, a lot of people are higher than that. That's just the average. So it's your job to inform them, offer them a free market analysis. Okay, question number 2. How many people in your database are inheriting property they need to sell, relocating, becoming empty nesters, or having another baby? How many of them are first-time buyers or have first-time buyer kids ready to pounce on the newest inventory and the lower rates? That was my next question. How many people in your database are aware of the recent drop and dropping even more every day in mortgage interest rates?
And use our scripts that are in Premier Coaching when calling them, because if you think back to the examples that Julie just gave you, it's all going to be good news when you call them. Like another excuse to call them might be using our scripts. Hey, do you realize what your home is worth in today's market? They're going to all be sitting on a mountain of equity. Do you realize what the lower rates will be doing to your payments? You're going to be welcomed on the phone or in the door to door when you're telling them all this great news, because it's all great news that you're passing along to them. So keep that in mind. So if your excuse is, I'm bothering them, they don't want to hear from me, all these other things, well, then keep stay on the track that you're on and actually don't do the real work of real estate. But for the rest of you who want to be the purveyor of things that people are going to, love you telling them, follow our coaching. Point number 2, Julie.
Yes. By the way, we have an upcoming podcast that addresses what you just said. Oh, I'm bothering them and talking about lead follow-up, making contact, and removing your head junk. So thank you for reminding me of that. Okay, now we have had entire podcast series about expired listings, but it is point number 2 because it's such an obvious lead source. Expireds are near the top of the list because of the following. They clearly want to sell. Many of them have to sell. These are the listings you're looking for. There's been a big increase in expired listings recently because most agents either had too short listing agreements in anticipation of the seller's market continuing, or aspirational pricing and competition from new construction have created more expireds and more withdrawns. Next reason you love expireds is you know what's probably the wrong price. Your comparative market analysis is much easier on an expired listing, although depending, they might actually be able to get the price that they expired at, especially the older expireds that might be 90 days, 6 months old, a year old, something like that.
The lower rates are going to increase demand, which is going to increase the sale prices of homes. So even if the listing expired 6 months or even 12 months ago, and it was, let's just assume it was not condition or location, it was price, they're priced perfectly now, might even be a little underpriced. Again, don't you think those folks are going to want to hear from you? And just follow our scripts. Ask the questions exactly like we give you them to ask. Find out what their motivation and their time frames are. Walk into some business that, frankly, many of you are way past due for earning.
That's right. And remember, too, the agent that you would have competed against, the one they thought would get the job done,
their center of influence and past client agent is the one they listed with that let it expire, and that person's no longer in the running.
That's all good for you. Okay. The seller will correct negative feedback and reprice the home if necessary, in most cases creating a quick sale. The average number of days on the market for a relisted expired is always less than the normal listings out there because it gets restaged, repriced, all of the things. Okay, so bonus, don't forget old and older expireds. You'll have less competition and are more likely to get the seller the price they wanted in the first place.
Now, there are over 20 different sources of lead generation for sellers that we teach you to do in Premier Coaching. These are kind of the
We're
favorites.
doing the top 5 today.
But these are the favorites that don't require any money to do for the most part and are mostly skills-based. And I'm going to go back to expireds. A lot of you are going to say, well, where am I going to get the expired phone numbers?
Sure.
I'll tell you where you're going to get them. Text the word RED, R-E-D, to 47372. Text the word RED, R-E-D, to 47372. And when you do, we're going to text you right back a link to become a subscriber to RedX. And it's like $150 savings, by the way. So RedX is going to be your source for getting all the expired information. What they do is pretty badass. They go into your MLS every night, like at midnight, and they pull out all the new expireds. They find the phone numbers, oftentimes 5 or 6 different phone numbers because, people have different phone numbers nowadays. They're going to do all of the private investigator work for you to get you all the information that you need to have. Then in the morning, when you start calling, and you should be calling in the morning using our scripts, you're going to have all the information sitting there waiting for you, and you're going to be able to start setting appointments, again, following our system. Doesn't sound that difficult because guess what? It isn't. The only reason that you're procrastinating doing this is because you don't have the skill set yet. And here's the last little piece of a suggestion I'll give to all of you. Earn while you learn. Don't wait to master all this. Don't join Premier Coaching and saying, once I learn all the scripts backwards and forwards and the pre-quals all backwards and forwards and the presentation and all the rest of it, all the things, then I'm actually going to pick up the phone calling expireds. Nope. I want you to actually start doing the real work and learn on the job because you will learn faster from the pressure of the seller that's on the other end of the phone, which could mean a $10, $20, or $30, or $100,000 commission if you list and sell the property.
Well, that's right. And it's interesting from a coaching perspective. The agents that do what you just described and they earn while they learn, they make the calls, they have the conversations, they progress so much more quickly because they're dealing with real world scenarios. And because even if they have screwed up the script, they still have the opportunity to maybe even take the listing anyway. Or the next call they make, they're going to correct course. They're going to fix whatever they screwed up on the script, and they're going to set that appointment. The agents that procrastinate and they get stuck in analysis paralysis, what they're coming up with in their head usually is not reality based. They're still, they're full of the what ifs and what if I get stuck and what if they say this and what if they say that versus the agent that hears what's actually going on and can react to that and then potentially close.
Just focus on helping the seller. The seller's got a problem. You have the unique skill set because you're one of our coaching clients to solve their problem. It's called getting a home sold. Maybe that seller has, they're going to need to buy up or they're going to buy down. Maybe you're going to sell the house yourself. The amount of opportunity that represents from one phone call is unprecedented in real estate. You're going to need that list. You definitely want to subscribe to RedX. Text the word RED, R-E-D, to 47372. Text the word RED to 47372. Julie, the next one is one of our favorite ones. Point number 3.
Point number 3, because it gets you out of your office. You get to learn all kinds of new stuff. It's fun and it's a great source. That is new build salespeople. These are the salespeople who sit in the builder's model homes and write up all those new construction contracts. Use our new construction plan if you're a Premier Coaching member. It's right there for you to meet those new build reps and get all of their resale referrals. When somebody builds with them, especially the more expensive ones, and they have a home to sell, what happens to that lead? This is a fantastic lead source because you can have one new build salesperson contact who sends you multiple leads yearly. What if you had 5 new build salespeople relationships? Almost all of our coaches do this with multiple new build sales reps. And that's just the easiest way to work new construction. That's like the first thing you learn about it is how to get those resale leads. And then it goes up from there. And we'll talk about that on one of our future podcasts.
But we teach you in Premier Coaching, like you're going to ask yourself, why would that new build rep want to refer their listing leads to me? Well, we're going to teach you that in Premier Coaching. But there's a lot of things you're going to, obviously be somebody that's reliable, somebody that they can refer a listing to, that they can then, count on you getting the home sold so that seller can then become a buyer of the new construction home, those types of things. So new build, making money with new builders is in many markets, I have to say, one of the least skilled, has the most upside for opportunity that there is in the marketplace. Because if that new build rep refers you to that, that new build rep's buyer who's also, has a home to sell, and that new build rep says, here's Julie, she's the agent I send my listing referrals to, you're probably not going to get shopped. You're probably not going to have to compete for that business. It's your business to lose at that point. Earn the relationships. We tell you how to do that in Premier Coaching. Remember, just go to premiercoaching.com or text the word Premier to 47372. Julie, our next point, which is point number 4.
Yes, point number 4, for sale by owners, otherwise known as unrepresented sellers. I just wrote an epic article for Vetted by Housing Wire about for sale by owners.
Say, hey, Julie, we want you to write an article for us about for sale by owners. And Julie, this is Julie. Oh, I can do that. And here's Julie 3 days later, still working on the article.
Well, because there's a lot to it. There's not a lot to, well, I'll get into it. Okay. So when the market is hot, like it's been for so long, there are always plenty of unrepresented owners, and you should call them unrepresented owners because that mentally reminds you that these are just seller leads that happen to be trying it on their own at the time, right?
Mostly they list them, they try to sell it themselves, not because they're saving the commission. Get that out of your head. Not because, they're crazy vampires. Well, though so many could be. I don't know. I'm not sure. But you guys get the point. So forget all the things that the old grizzled veterans said that they used as their excuses for failing with for sale by owners. Most for sale by owners in every survey that I've ever read with for sale by owners that ended up basically listing with the listing agent, when asked why they tried to for sale by owner themselves to start, it's because they said they had the time and they didn't know an agent. So the mindset is if you see a for sale by owner sign in a yard, that's merely a help wanted sign.
Cry for help.
And they gave you their damn phone number. And you can call them and you're going to talk directly with the seller who already has told you they have a house to sell. And yet, how many of you, I know.
You sound like my article.
How many of you are going to toil away working on your branding and your marketing and your videos and your social media and your other things, looking for a seller? Oh God, please, dear real estate God, please send me a potential listing lead. And yet, on your way to Starbucks today to buy your $10 Frappy or whatever it is, you basically have driven past 5 or 6 for sale by owners, didn't even notice the signs. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and you're not even talking about if they're going to buy with you. It's not just one deal you're driving past. It's potentially
some
more
of our
than that.
best centers of influence and past clients when Julie and I sold real estate. Because again, when we were in our early 20s and we got into the real estate business, we had no centers of influence and past client. So we had to go after the for sale by owners, the expireds, do the real work of real estate. A lot of those for sale by owners, we again learned being on the job, they were for sale by owning for the exact reasons I just told you. They didn't know an agent. Well, we became the only agent they know, and a lot of them, through our real estate career, did multiple transactions, are still referring business to us this day, and we haven't sold real estate for quite a while. And we live in Puerto Rico, and Julie and I sold real estate in Columbus, Ohio.
It's true. They are some of your most loyal repeat customers because they have a unique perspective. They actually tried to do what you do for a living, and they, ultimately weren't that good at it. I got some great stats for you, by the way. They're fresh in my head from this.
Oh boy, here we go.
This is so good for our for sale by owner hunters, okay? So did you know that only 11% of the time are for sale by owners successful? 11%. That means 89% of the time they don't actually sell the home on their own.
So when they do sell their home, how much of what is their success rate? What is their list to sell price ratio by comparison?
Funny you should ask. There are several different reports. All of them range between, for sale by owners on average, assuming that they actually sell, which remember is only 11% of the time, end up coming down between 5 and 25% versus a comparable listed home. Now, why is that? Because, one of the reasons is that they could start out a little bit maybe overpriced for, 2-3 weekends. It could be because they're on and off the market, but ultimately they sell for less, statistically up to 25% less. And that is an NAR statistic, which compares the average sale price for a for sale by owner, I think, is $310,000 versus $420 something.
Here's the script you were bugging me for. Guys, we're giving you advanced coaching. I hope you're keeping up. You're talking to a for sale by owner. And I know a lot of the for sale by owner scripts that have been out there since the 1970s. I'll just be straight with you guys. They're absolute garbage. Because here's the thing with the for sale by owner. We just gave you the 2 keys to success with them. They probably think they have time and they just don't know an agent. They aren't agent haters like most of you are led to believe. So when you're talking to the for sale by owner, I'm going to skip past the initial meet and greet. Mr. Seller, listen, after having seen your home, you have positioned it, very well. I don't think your pricing looks reasonable for this market. You've done a great home brochure. Give them compliments on the things that they showed you with pride. It's the yard that they just cleaned up. It's the bathroom that they just retiled. Absolutely pour on the love. Now, I'll give you guys a little, again, next level coaching. For the most part, if it is a married couple, there's going to be only one of them that wanted it for sale by owner, and the other one's just going along for the ride. Doesn't really want it for sale by owner, but wants to actually try to prove it to themselves. Julie and I were sitting in a restaurant in Georgetown, Texas, where we lived before we moved here. And we're sitting in this small restaurant, and maybe a couple tables away, there was a lady probably in her 60s or 70s. There was this lady that was probably in her 30s, and there was this guy that was in his 30s. And Julie and I surmised that was the lady's mom and her, and she was there with the son-in-law or the husband, right? The husband is going on how he is so excited to try to for sale by owner his house, and he's talking about all the things he's going to do. We weren't selling real estate, otherwise, trust me, I would have gone up and said something to him. But it was fascinating to listen to all the things that he was having to say, and just being able to kind of nod, look in that direction, and see the wife and the mother-in-law barely put up with his master plan to sell the house. So here's the psychology. When you go and talk to the seller, and the sellers in this case, and I already told you, one of them is going to be the one that's all geeked up to go FSBO. You need to pour on the praise in front of the spouse of the one that wants to go FSBO. Listen, okay, I'm going to pretend it's Bob and Sally, and let's say Bob's the one that wants to do this big experiment, this grand plan to FSBO his house. So Bob, listen. I've seen your house. You really positioned it perfectly. And I maybe I shouldn't even tell you this, but if I had a house like this and I never real estate license, I would probably try to consider for sale by owning it myself. And you've done a great job positioning it. I saw your little property website you made, the home brochure you made. I did notice all the little changes you made. I'm really impressed with the backyard landscaping that you did, the new deck you put on. Look, I'm giving you honest feedback here, Bob. Great job getting this house for sale. But let me ask you a real quick question. If I could pop by with a buyer that wanted to close around your schedule, a buyer that had no issues with the inspection, no issues with the appraisal, no issues with anything, this is the perfect buyer. They are going to close around your schedule. You're in complete control of the whole thing. In other words, this is the buyer you've been hoping for, Bob. And the check I hand you at closing is the same, if not significantly more, than you'd be able to get for sale buying this house yourself. Bob, let me ask you a question. Why wouldn't you list the house with me? And here's what he's going to say if he's not crazy. He's going to say, if you can prove to me you'll do all that, I would list the house with you. Then you're going to use Julie's statistics that we're going to be giving you on an upcoming podcast or an upcoming vetted by Housing Wire article. And you can then use those statistics to show him the facts. And it's not going to be, you said it's true. It's going to be all these reputable sources that's showing the for sale by owner seller the facts. So Bob, listen, statistically, this house is going to sell for this much less. It costs, let's say you're on the low end of the lesser part, right? We know it's 5 to 25% less. So let's say you sell it for 5% less. Do you realize you could have hired me to take care of all the hassles, all the inspections, all the appraisals, taking care of all the legal liability, dealing with all the 62 different people that are going to be, part of this transaction, inspectors, termite inspectors, the attorneys, the insurance agents. I'm going to deal with all of that for you. I'm going to take care of all of it for you. And then you're going to essentially be able to hire me for free based on these statistics. So I'm going to ask my question again, Bob. I've just shown you that I can essentially get this property sold for you, and the check I hand you at closing is the same, if not most likely, significantly more than you'd be able to get selling it yourself. The last question I have for you is, where do I put the for sale by owner? Or where do I put your for sale by owner sign? And most importantly, where do I put my sign in your yard? Right?
Absolutely right.
Something like that.
Yes.
So that's not, I'm just winging it. I don't remember how the script is written. It's on our website. That's the moving parts
That's
of
the
it.
gist of it, yes.
But that's what I used to say, and Julie and I used to say when we sold real estate. And we've taught literally, potentially over 100,000, I imagine, agents to say the same exact thing. Knock, knock, knock. I'm Tim Harris. I work with eXp Realty. We sell a lot of homes in your area. I noticed your home was for sale. I was just popping by to see if I might be able, or maybe you call and say this. I was just calling to find out if I might be able to get a tour of your home to see if there's any match for one of my buyers. Well, are you going to bring your buyer by? Well, I have to see the home first to know which one of my buyers it's going to be a good match for. So would today at say 4 o'clock or tomorrow at 4 o'clock be better for you? Then set the appointment, then go on the tour, then use the script. Why are you making it harder than that? It's not.
The reason that script works, as I highlighted in my article and you highlighted on this podcast, is because you are taking care of their problem, okay? Why did they go for sale by owner? Well, they thought maybe they'd save a little bit of money. An agent hasn't talked to them yet. Their spouse probably didn't want to do a for sale by owner anyway. And you are positioning it, you're taking all the objections off the table. If the check that I hand you at closing is the same or better than you can do on your own, I handle all of the hassles for you. Why wouldn't you go ahead and list?
But break it down even farther,
Yes.
okay? I'm doing that intentionally in front of Bob and Sally.
Mm-hmm.
Sally doesn't want to FSBO anyway. I remember actually, having actually done the real work of real estate. It's always one. It's very rarely do you have both.
See it in their eyes.
Exactly. You can see in the eye. You can see Sally's just putting up the old Bob.
Just had it.
Exactly. But so I am answering. But most importantly, the reason it works is because I'm pouring on the praise for Bob in front of Sally. What Bob really wanted to be, more than anything, more than even selling a house, is he wanted to be told he was right. And telling him he's right in front of his wife or his spouse is what he truly wanted from a psychological perspective. And now you're giving them statistical proof that you're going to be able to essentially help him accomplish his financial goals from selling the property in a more meaningful way. That's how you sell for sale by owners.
That's right. And you'll notice that not a single thing that we've discussed, presented, or talked about is combative in any way.
No.
It's all 100% being of service, focusing on their needs, and solving their problem.
And that is a copywritten script that Julie and I wrote that Premier Coaching members obviously have access to, as well as coaching from I'm thinking of Brandon Jackson, one of our Premier coaches. Mm-hmm. That's his primary source of business is for sale by owners. So remember, for those of you ready to join Premier Coaching, which I know is all of you, text the word Premier to 47372, Premier, Premier, to 47372, or just go to premiercoaching.com.
Okay, last but not least, because, we could talk about FSBOs and expireds all day long, because we actually did that and made a lot of money from it.
It is funny, Julie, for some of these topics, it's not all of them. And don't talk to me about notice defaults or,
probate. And stuff.
Probate. Oh,
Yeah.
Lord, that I have to, drink 10 times more caffeine to get myself interested in that stuff.
Yeah.
But these that actually work, that we know at a high level, we've coached other people to be very successful at, truly gets me excited.
Me too.
Because if you learn how to work for sale by owners, and you then have a bunch of centers of influence and past clients, you pretty much have a real estate career. You just do.
100%. One of my newest elite coaching clients, Shauna, her bread and butter is for sale by owners and expireds. She looks forward to those calls. She's good at it. And, before we bounce off of FSBOs, I just have to say, one of the most common comments that our coaching clients share after their first, it's not even always after taking the listing. Sometimes it's their first, FSBO appointment set. They always say the same thing. Those sellers were so nice. Because the expectation is they're fire-breathing sociopaths, and they're not for the most part. Maybe
For the
one
most
in
part,
100.
you will find them. I mean,
know.
you're going to find the
And then you'll have it over with because it's not all of them.
Well, so they don't know an agent, but maybe, okay, we're going to look at this on both sides. I'm trying to make you guys laugh, but what I'm saying is true. Yeah. Maybe the reason that they don't have an agent is because no agent would work with them. They do have to sell their house, and they are fiery breathing sociopaths. So you're going to have ratios. Julie and I's ratio is 1 in 20 as a nut. We would list them anyway and just put up.
They're not always FSBOs either.
Exactly. We'd list them anyway because after all, it's a property to sell. But you're going to find that. And the other thing you'll discover is some people that act crazy are acting crazy because the pressures in their lives that are causing them to sell their homes.
That's true.
And as soon as the house is sold, they become your best, well, I'm not going to say your best friend, but they become one of your best sources of centers of influence and past clients. This is the art and the science, the psychology and the skills that you need to have to be successful long-term in real estate.
Well, that's true. And I have many memories of, why would we list somebody that kind of presents half crazy? It's because they were motivated and we knew that they had to sell the house and we knew that they shared their stresses and their pressures. And I have a lot of memories of post-closing where I went to the closing like I was a stress ball myself because I was dealing with stressy people, and they would give me the biggest hug, and I'm like, who are you people?
Like, you know how to hug, really?
Seriously, like, what is this?
You have an emotion other than anger?
Exactly, but it's because they ended up being super grateful that we've solved their problem.
Okay, so what we're doing is freaking some of these guys out that are trying to convince themselves to call FSBOs. It's 1 in 20. See if your ratio is maybe 1 in 30. If it's 1 in 10, it might be you.
You can beat our ratio, I'm
okay,
sure.
But here's the moral of the story. Do not convince yourself that everybody's calling for sale by owners. Everybody's calling expired. No, they're not. They're mailing them crap, and they're trying to chase them on social. People have lost, agents have lost the willingness, the ability, and the mindset to actually do the real work of real estate, which is picking up the phone, going to the door, and doing proactive lead generation. If you want to have an unfair advantage in the marketplace, do what other people aren't willing to do for lead generation. And I just told you one of the many things we teach you in Premier Coaching. Point number 5.
Last but not least on today's lead generators, open houses. Refer to our podcast, How to Not Just Sit an Open House, How to Monetize Open Houses. We've done lots of podcasts on opens. Our open house system and scripts are proven to generate a bare minimum of at least 3 closable buyers or sellers every time, assuming you follow the system. It's about choosing the right house, promoting the open house, using good scripts, and having relentless lead follow-up. Many of our coaching clients have spun this source into a predictable listing machine. If you failed at open houses before, you are missing a key element of our system to make it work.
Now remember, this is a podcast. It is 20 to 30 minutes. It is not coaching. If you love what you get from this podcast, as I know thousands of you do, because thousands of you listen to every single podcast we do every single day except the weekends, we have 5,000 plus podcasts. You can go to iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or of course our own website. You can get immediate access to all those past podcasts. But for those of you who are ready to go to the next level, yes, it's Premier Coaching, but maybe you're in that intermediate stage. Maybe you're not quite ready to commit to coaching. Well, I want you to subscribe to our newsletter, because then at the very least, you can have all of our long-form notes from our podcast. The exact notes Julie and I use every single day on the podcast are available to you. You have to subscribe. It costs you nothing. It takes like 5 seconds to drop in an email address. Just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. The link to join is down below. Just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. Down below in the show description, whether you're on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or whatever, Harris Real Estate Daily will then automatically send you that day's newsletter. It has usually the video from the podcast from yesterday, today's podcast, and the notes from the podcast as well. harrisrealestatedaily.com. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, and we'll certainly talk with you on the show tomorrow for day 3.